Alright, Pokemon fans, this video is going to cover my personal top 10 Alolan Pokemon I would like to see on Ash Ketchum's team as he goes through the Sun and Moon series. Now, when I say top 10, that doesn't necessarily mean that I want him to capture all of these Pokemon, but if he's restricted to just 6 in terms of Pikachu and 5 other Pokemon, this is the pool of 10 Pokemon I would like to pick from, because in the Black and White series in Unova, we saw Ash capture a good number of Pokemon, but the downside was he didn't really rotate them enough so they can all have, I guess you could say, their own kind of time to shine and personality. Yeah, I believe some of them, if not all of them, had some great battles, but we really didn't connect with them like we did, let's say, Kanto or Hoenn, where he tended to use the same Pokemon during the entire region. So, as of right now in the Japanese series, and spoiler warnings ahead here, we do know that Ash has Pikachu, of course, Rowlet, and the English dub hasn't caught up just yet, but he also has Litten and Rockruff. So right now he's at a total of 4 Pokemon. So I guess you could say this list might run down to, 2 Pokemon from this list along with the 4 he has already. But let's just start off at number 10 with Pokemon I think and would like to see on Ash's team as he goes through the Alolan region. Number 10 is going to be Mudsdale, actually. It might seem like an odd choice, but I would really love to see Ash have like a horse Pokemon to travel around with, especially since they're going to be doing ride Pokemon. I guess you could say it's a given that at some point he's going to encounter and interact with a Mudsdale, but I feel like Mudsdale is one of those tanky Pokemon, almost like I guess you could say Ash's Donphan or Torkoal. Or even the Goodra. I mean, a Pokemon that's able to take hits but to deliver fierce damage back to this opponent. I mean, it would be interesting if he caught it as a Mudbray, but Mudsdale just seems more Ash appropriate. I could definitely see Mudsdale being something Ash captures in its first form, just because, again, it's almost like a Pokemon you have to be patient with. And Ash is definitely the kind of trainer that would take his time to develop I guess you could say, a unique battle strategy from Mudsdale as a Pokemon. And again, that's what Ash excels in terms of bringing out the potential of a Pokemon that some people won't even waste their time on. AKA Paul's Chimchar, which Ash grew into Infernape, and we all know how powerful that thing became. Next, we get to number 9, and this Pokemon is actually pretty interesting. Grubbin, we saw in the first episode of the Sun and Moon anime where Ash and his mom and Mr. Mom and Pikachu were kind of shopping around at the local shops outside of the Pokemon trainer school, basically in the city that they were in. I believe they won like a free vacation to Alola. And Grubbin actually appeared and pinched Ash on the nose. I mean, we all know how excited Ash gets when he sees a new Pokemon, but by now he should know better than he kind of poke his face in a Pokemon's personal space, especially one with claws or any kind of appendages that look like they can actually stab you. So it pinched Ash on the nose and pretty much used Dig to escape into the forest where he encountered Beware. But Grubbin seems like the kind of stubborn Pokemon that Ash would capture, almost like a Turtwig, a stubborn Pokemon that would eventually warm up to Ash. And it's ironic, if it warms up to Ash, then evolves a Charge Bug, where it's like a, cocoon Pokemon. Two main problems with that is, number one, if they do follow the game mechanics, Charjabug wouldn't fully evolve to Vikavolt until late in the series when he's about to fight the Pokemon League. When he goes through I believe it's the Vast Pony Canyon. And number 2, if I'm not mistaken, we've never really seen where Ash had 2 electric types on his team at once if I'm not mistaken, any more than 1 electric Pokemon in his possession, period, being Pikachu. I mean, yes, he did use that Raichu at the Pokemon Trainer School or training camp back in the Diamond and Pearl series, but I mean in terms of a main traveling Pokemon with him. Vikavolt is just so badass. I would love to see that on Ash's team, especially since, he didn't have a bug type last season, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I know he had, flying types, dragon types, but I would really love to see Vikavolt because then again, it goes back to the writers probably not wanting 2 electric types on Ash's team at once, but Vikavolt is definitely, or Grubbin is my number 9 pick there. Next is going to be number 8, and is most likely not going to happen because Ash does already have a flying type in Rowlet, but the trend of Ash always catching the regional bird of a particular series Toucanon would be an interesting choice because, like Grubbin, it seems like one of those stubborn Pokemon that would eventually warm up to Ash. In this case, it will use a Beak Blast, but we did see Toucanon in the Rowlet episode where Ash caught Rowlet. But if Ash were to get a Toucanon, I would think that it would most likely be the Toucanon that was taking care of the Trumbeaks as well as Rowlet in the forest. But just because you can see the dynamic of Rowlet and Toucanon kind of like double battles with each other, but I doubt that Toucanon would leave the forest because of all the Pokemon it was taken care of. So maybe Ash will capture a Picky Pet, because I mean last season he did have what 3 flying types on his team: Noivern, Talonflame, Hawlucha. So what's 2 more, you know, in terms of Rowlet and Toucanon? But I would rather him not get Toucanon because, again, it's a main staple in the series that he does get, like, you know, he comes to the region with Pikachu. He might capture, you know, 1 or 2 of the starters and then eventually capture the regional bird. But, you know, it is a normal flying type. But, well, then again, I guess you could say if Rowlet does fully evolve, it will lose its flying type. But I'll just say Toucanon is a solid number 8. It doesn't have to be on his team. It's a predictable member of his team, but I would definitely say it's not one of the ones I would definitely want him to have. Then we move on to number 7, and this is actually an interesting choice because Drampa really seems like a Pokemon Ash would have fun interacting with, just because of how derpy it looks. It almost looks like a, again, you know, a Snoop Dogg or Snoop Lion Pokemon, just the way it looks. It looks like the never-ending story dragon. It's just like, I feel like if Ash met Drampa, there will be so many stories and so much wisdom he would like to bestow until this plucky young trainer. And I mean, again, just like Mudsdale, it is a tank of a Pokemon. It'll be interesting to see him use it in battle because it is pretty large. You know, I could just see Ash kind of grooming it now, just kind of riding on his back. But, you know, it's just one of those Pokemon that if Ash was following the trend of getting a dragon type like he did back in Kalos, I would think Drampa would be an interesting choice. And from there, we're going to move on to number 6. And number 6 should be higher up on the list, but I feel like this is a given. I feel like it's going to be Lyson Rock when Ash's Rockruff eventually evolves, because if you look at it this way, Gladion appeared in a couple episodes of the Sun and Moon series ago. Again, in Japanese, they're way far ahead. I really did enjoy the episode. Of course, he has the midnight form of Lycanroc, and it is pretty BA. So I feel that they almost established like a new rivalry between Ash and Gladion, because Gladion is a strong trainer. Ash is, you know, he's all about battling strong Pokemon. So we did see a brief Rockruff versus Lycanroc battle. I mean, earlier in the episode, Lycanroc easily defeated a Blastoise. We don't even know if it took damage. All we know is it used counter on a Skull Bash attack and knocked it out. But even before that, we saw Blastoise being knocked into a pool of water. So we can assume that Lycanroc did more damage before it defeated Blastoise with counter. I know the whole trend, it is kind of annoying to have Ash battling fully evolved Pokemon with his baby Pokemon. Well, not baby Pokemon, but first stage Pokemon. But at this point, Pikachu, Rowlet, Litten, and Rockruff is all he has, so he really has no choice. But at the same time, I feel like that mini battle they had that got interrupted by Team Rocket, of course, is an establishment of Rockruff being inspired to get more powerful. So I could see Ash getting the midday form because, again, it follows that trend of Ash having like the sleek, maneuverable, powerful Pokemon. So midday form Lycanroc seems like the most likely form it will evolve into. I mean, it was kind of, Rockruff was just amazed at Lycanroc when he first saw it, but again, I really think midday Lycanroc is a given. And moving on to number 5, I guess you could say it's almost with Lycanroc in terms of how it fit together between Ash and Gladion's kind of a rivalry, so to speak. I mean, honestly, type Null or Savali, just because if they want to follow the trend, and again, it depends on how well the anime sticks to the games. If they want to have Gladion with type Null, but then like Paul, it doesn't really have a he doesn't really have a connection with his Pokemon, and it doesn't evolve, then he gives it to Ash, and then of course with Ash being Ash, making friends with a rock, no Geodude pun intended there, he'll be able to get type Null evolve and just Savali and pretty much prove about, how love and friendship is more important than anything else. But the main reason I don't see this happening is because in the video games, Gladion eventually gets type null to evolve. But in the post game, he does give the player a type null. So I could see Ash getting type null from Gladion, or him getting Savali, because again, he does what Gladion can't, which is fully evolve it with friendship and love. I know it will come into play, Savali being able to change types based off the disc. So I don't really know if Ash will be the one to strategically use the disc, because he will go in with a level 5 Pokemon against a level 75 and expect to win. But I think it will be pretty interesting, though I doubt that he'll have a Lycanroc and Savali, because they're almost like, kind of beast-based Pokemon. So Savali will be an interesting choice. It just depends on how it plays into the main story. Number 4 is actually going to be Beware. And again, kind of like Grubbin, I don't really see it happening because Beware has become the main staple of the Team Rocket characters in the Sun and Moon anime so far. I thought it would be pretty cool if Ash actually caught it, because again, we know Ash is all about loving his Pokemon, hugging them, showing affection. But then every time he tries to do so, Beware hugs him back and almost crushes his spine. And we all know that when it comes to lovable Pokemon who show affection but at the same time torture their trainers, James unfortunately comes out on the short end of the stick of that, with Pokemon like Cacnea, Victreebel, and the list goes on. So I feel like Beware is one of the best things about the anime series right now. I'm not really a fan of its wailing cry, but at the same time, just the comedic aspect of how it always seems to pull a Superman and come out, just fly and jump and do all this crazy stuff to save Team Rocket at the end of the day. So it will be an interesting, pick. I mean, maybe Ash will catch a Stuffle. You never know. But, maybe Lily will catch a Stuffle. I just really want to see a Stuffle, even though I'm not really sure about why it has the little price tag on its butt. But, Going on to number 3. And almost like Drampa, if they do follow the trend of getting Ash a dragon Pokemon or even both pseudo-legendaries, I would say Kokamo would be an interesting choice, being a dragon fighting type. Again, it really goes back to being sort of a tanky Pokemon that can really deliver some powerful hits. I could see Ash, clanging scales. That would be a pretty interesting Pokemon friend to have. Being kind of a speed, well, not extremely fast, but, pretty decent in terms of bulk. I mean, the games, its stats are all over the place. It reminds me of Gladion. When I saw the Gladion's Midnight Lycanroc, the fact that it so easily took out a Blastoise, I said, man, if this was the games, that would not happen, seriously. Just because the anime doesn't really follow all of the game mechanics, which makes it unique in itself, but semi-annoying when you see a Pokemon that isn't super strong in the games be incredibly powerful in the anime, but, it is what it is. I would say Kokamo would definitely be one of those Pokemon that's kind of like a big brother guardian, because I believe the Pokedex says that it will go back to, protect Jangmo-o and pretty much its own species after it fully evolves. So I think it will be a pretty interesting, like, parental big brother figure for the team. I know we know Pikachu is that person, well, excuse me, that Pokemon for Ash's team, but to have like an even, bigger Pokemon do the job or help him out, I think that'll be pretty interesting to keep Ash's team in line. Moving on to number 2 is actually an interesting choice. If things don't pan out with Kokamo, I would say Passimian is another Pokemon I would definitely like to see on Ash's team. Kind of the leaping lemur kind of theme of Pokemon. I do like the fact that it has like that the ball, or I believe it like throws berries and whatnot too. I feel like that would be an interesting Pokemon for Ash to have, just because it has its own niche. Like Farfetch has its leak, Passimian has this ball that it throws around. I think that would be great, because again, it goes back to Ash and his team training as well as having fun. I can imagine Passimian kind of like, playing catch or ball with Ash's other Pokemon. It seems like a very speedy and maneuverable Pokemon as well. Can you imagine like a practice match, or maybe even a double battle in the forest where Passimian and Rowlet, maybe it will fully evolve into Decidueye? Because Passimian, being a lemur, will easily be able to maneuver around trees, while you have the grass archer in the background kind of firing spirit shackles. That would be an interesting double battle, or even like a training match, if Dartrix, let's say Rowlet goes into a second form and doesn't sleep as much, but prunes its feathers a lot more. So I could see it being a serious, powerful Pokemon, but at the same time, its personality will get the better of it. So I would definitely like to see kind of a Rowlet and Passimian friendship, almost like Halucha and Noivern back in the X and Y series. So again, Passimian will be an interesting choice. Now we get to my number one pick. It's going to be Wimpod, because I believe in the episode it was more of a Ash Pikachu centric episode, pretty much reassuring the fact that those two are best friends. They have goals to get stronger together and yada yada yada. I don't mean to kind of brush over that, but when you've been watching Pokemon series for so long, you kind of know where those two are in terms of their friendship getting stronger, even though they haven't won a league, but they're going to do their best. And Ash helped the wild Wimpod get back to the ocean. And those two really kind of formed like a bond. I feel like Wimpod might be one of those recurring or I wouldn't say, well, you can kind of say roaming Pokemon that will kind of pop up when you least expect it, like in Diamond and Pearl, where you had Hippopotas kind of show up in multiple episodes and you thought Ash was going to catch it, but he didn't. Now, if Ash were to catch Wimpod, again, it goes out to him being the kind of trainer that would bring out the best in a Pokemon who seems extremely weak to others, especially with the Wimp Out ability. I feel like Wimpod is the complete antithesis of who Ash is as a person. He does not back down. Wimpod's ability is Wimp Out. Heck, Wimp is in its name. I could see Ash training Wimpod in like practice battles and whatnot, but then it gets scared fighting against, other opponents, even some of Ash's own team members. Then I could see maybe in like a Team Rocket plot or, Team Rocket centric episode, or even Team Skull, if Ash and all of his teammates are in a bind, Wimpod becomes brave, not assuming that's its nature. It evolves into, it's a Golisopod, I believe, and kicks butt. Of course, has the emergency exit ability, but it goes from that wimpy Pokemon to a strong brawler, who is again a bulky Pokemon. Now, number one, again, is Wimpod, but I could see it happening, but not happening. Because if Wimpod is on Ash's team, I don't want it to have the Corphish treatment. And that's what the Corphish treatment is, having Ash have Corphish in its first form. Because a big rumor about the Hoenn region is the fact that, Team Aqua has Crawdaunt, so I don't believe they evolve Corphish into Crawdaunt just because it will be too much of a villainous Pokemon. I don't really like that because, again, it really feels like it held Corphish back. I mean, I love Ash's Corphish. He has a very strong battle record under his pincers, especially like taking out Golduck in the Pokemon League, and somehow with Swellow taking out an Arcanine and Swampert. But, that was an interesting battle. I would like for Wimpod to be just what I said it would be, a wimpy Pokemon that Ash helps it, brings out its full potential, where Ash is in a bind and Wimpod finally becomes brave and evolves to help out Ash and becomes one of his most powerful hitters. So personally, that is my own top 10 Pokemon that I would like to see Ash have on his team during the Alola region series. So in the comment section below, list out a few of Pokemon you would like to see for Ash to have on his team. And I also did another video where I look at the Alolan forms and I picked out 5 Pokemon, I guess you could say Kanto Pokemon in the Alolan forms that I would like to see Ash pick from if he had to choose one to put on his team. So as always, please comment, like, and subscribe to keep up with any videos I do in the future, and I will talk to you later.